How did we go from climate change to crickets to cannibalism? Oh boy, I got a lot to talk to you about today. Hey everybody, Dr. Chris Martinson here. Today we're going to be talking about this climate emergency thing. Something is not quite adding up. We have to talk about it. Biden's climate emergency. How did we move from climate change to crickets to cannibalism? I don't know, but let's start here. Look at this. President Biden in the United States, he's crowing about the reduction in gasoline prices. You know what happens when you reduce the price of something like gasoline? People use more of it. That's what he wants. He wants people to be happy. He doesn't like the political pressure. So here he is taking full credit saying, hey, Putin caused the prices to go up, but I'm proud to say gas prices have declined by an average of 60 cents a gallon over the past 38 days. Okay, that's what he's doing. But he's also saying this. When it comes to fighting climate change, I won't take no for an answer. In the coming weeks, I will use the powers I have as president to turn promises into formal, official government actions. I will do everything in my power to win the clean energy future. Whoa, okay, so how do you square that circle? How do you say, hey, on the one hand, I'm pretty happy that I made gasoline prices come down so you can consume more of that. On the other hand, I want to be clear that I'm going to use my official bully pulpit as the president to enforce some climate action stuff over here. Maybe not unlike what Mark Rutte of Holland and Justin Trudeau have done, where the first place they decided to start with their executive powers was farmers. Go figure. All right, so this is incoherent messaging. And by the way, is this really an emergency? We got to talk about this. Does this really qualify as an emergency? So these are just some headlines. I didn't sort them in any way. This is just what showed up when I searched for Biden climate emergency. Bang. Biden could declare climate emergency, according to John Kerry. Activists protest at White House Chief of Staff's house pushing for climate emergency. So the activists are there now. I guess they're all done with the Supreme Court for the moment. And at the Hill reporting that 60 House lawmakers urge Biden to declare national climate emergency. Whoa, okay. Sounds like an emergency. So the president can declare an emergency and use emergency powers. Well, that's a little weird, isn't it? Because one definition of an emergency is something unexpected that suddenly arose. How long has his climate emergency been with us? Years? Decades? It didn't suddenly emerge is what I'm saying. Here I think Doomberg, and if you don't subscribe to Doomberg, I do, over on Substack, there's the link down below. Wonderful, wonderful writer. I love the way Doomberg goes about it, because what he does is every time I learn something. And in this case, I love this framing right here. He wrote, a glaring example of such behavior is the executive branch of the United States government's ongoing redefinition of the word emergency, a bipartisan indulgence spanning decades that has disproportionately shifted power away from Congress and the courts toward the sprawling administrative state overseen by the executive branch. Don't like how the political winds are blowing? Declare an emergency, assert the associated powers, and dictate your desired outcomes by decree. That's what's happening here. It's, it's a little tricky. It's a little bit tight in terms of the balance of power in the Senate and the Congress. Making our argument is kind of tricky. So we'd have to convince people. We might have to do some actual horse trading and have some actual political back and forth. We might even, horrifyingly, most horrifyingly of all, we might even have to listen to what the other side thinks, right? Unacceptable. So, in fact, the concept of a political leader who possesses absolute power originated as the title of a Roman dictator, elected by the Roman Senate to rule the republic in times of emergency by diktat, right? Note both the close association of the words dictator and emergency and the semantic shift in the meaning of dictator over time. It has far more negative connotation today for good reason. Contrived emergencies have long served as a useful tool to illegitimately concentrate political power. Reminds me of a pandemic we went through recently. It is with this backdrop in mind that we read with considerable interest about U.S. President Joe Biden's apparent readiness to declare a climate emergency, thereby granting himself the authority to do by diktat that which he could not achieve using normal political methods. With its back against the wall heading into midterm elections, the administration seems desperate to be seen as doing something on climate. Potential damage to the constitutional order of the country notwithstanding. This seems to be almost like a theme that's going on around the world. in Holland, in Canada, here in the United States. By the way, as a part of this overall larger climate emergency, I will remind you that in November of 2016, come on here, let's look at this real quick. See this? See when this came out? Most people aren't aware of this. This video, which starts famously with number 1 down here, which is that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Everybody's familiar with number 1. Number 8 is Western values will be tested to the breaking point. There were only 8 of these sort of predictions made here in 2016 by the World Economic Forum. Number 4 was you'll eat much less meat. An occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of the environment and our health. What do you mean our health? It's a little inclusive. Really? Our health? I'm part of the WF Davos crowd now? No? Oh, I didn't think so. So, but this thing, I just want to point out, this was sort of wrapped up in the context of the whole overall global Great Reset and everything. And they said here in 2016 that by 2030, you'll eat much less meat. And what's weird about that is that with all the things going on in the world, with all of the various crises, with, I don't know, everything that's been going on in Ukraine, in all of North Africa, in watching various crises erupt all over the world, that this would be the time that the Pope would get himself out of his chair and tell young people, not all people, young people, eating meat is part of a self-destructive trend. What? Okay. I might not be caught up on all of my religious aspects as much as I should be, but I'm not. This feels like the Pope is a little reaching here for something, and it's kind of weird in particular because of all the other context that this comes in. So it wasn't just the Pope, right? It includes these people right here. So Time just writing recently, they're healthy, they're sustainable. So why don't humans eat more bugs? BBC, sustainability on a shoestring in the food section. Could grasshoppers really replace beef? Question mark. We're just surrounded by these sorts of stories now, just surrounded. If we wanted to save the planet, if we want to save the planet, the future of food is insects. Get the message yet? How about this? Food Tank, the think tank for food, also in their sustainable agriculture. Isn't this weird how sustainable agriculture suddenly became about eating grasshoppers or something? 2 billion people eat insects, and you can too. So just trying to normalize all this. So this is one of the crazy things that's been going on throughout this whole cycle, is watching lots and lots of things get normalized over and over and over again that are really weird, really, really edgy, really pushy things that really transcend a lot of cultural boundaries, but they fundamentally say, we're going to race into this brand new future, which is going to include eating bugs. Now, here's how this works out. Humans, when long time ago, we had this megafauna kicking around. We could hunt giant mastodons and sloths and huge bears and other things like that. And then we kind of ate through all those. And next thing you know, well, there were still bison and deer, so we were hunting all those. Next thing you know, well, we moved to cows. And then now we want to move to insects. So you can see we're moving down this food chain pretty aggressively as a species. By the way, it's kind of a warning sign when you're moving down to like eating krill out of the ocean and eating bugs, okay? Maybe we should have a conversation about where are we going in this story, and is this really where we want to go before we race to just normalize all this stuff. This is a little bit, you should be taking some very important messages from the absolute quantity of this kind of messaging. I just barely Googled for like 10 seconds and I came up with these headlines right here, right? These are just everywhere we can go and look. So this is just weird stuff, right? And by the way, I don't know that anybody would ever sort of promote eating a live grasshopper. I think that you'd want to, I don't know, batter it or deep fry it or something, whatever. But as weird as this is, there's been another trend that's just popped out that just jumps the shark, goes just one further, which is this. So the New York Times on July 23rd, now I realize this is a review of books and all of that other stuff, but they decided the way they were going to characterize this sort of review of this rise of cannibalism as a subject that they could find in movies and books and things like that. They wrote, "Cannibalism has a time and a place. Some recent books, films, and shows suggest that the time is now. Can you stomach it?" What do you mean cannibalism has a time and place? Which, I must have fallen asleep for this part of the episode. I didn't realize we were already at that part of the story where it's that time or that place. I don't understand what's going on here. But this attempt to normalize this stuff, maybe this is just tongue in cheek. Okay. All right. It's just the New York Times. It's just New York Times. But I mean, to go from crickets to cannibalism, boy, that escalated quickly. Yeah. So it's from Anchorman. But whoa, hold on. In 2020, Fox News reported grow your own human steaks meal kit is not technically cannibalism. Makers say. I was unaware people were already working on this as a technology. I did not know this. So that's happening. Not to be outdone, Swedish scientist advocates eating humans to combat climate change. There. Now we got just straight to it. Just connected the whole thing. Came all the way back home to the beginning of the conversation. It's a climate emergency. So we have some scientist who acknowledges the many taboos this idea would have to overcome. There you have it. This is just as strange as it ever gets, and somehow it's all coming back around. So you need to be aware, though, that this is what's happening in a climate emergency if it's promoted or put forth by Biden here in the United States, but more generally around Europe. It has nothing to do with climate change. If it did, the people promoting these things wouldn't be flying private jets, would be talking about the mega mansions that they and all their friends own, would talk about, I don't know, the yachts that are 400, 500, 600 feet that these billionaires are driving around. Until and unless you hear the same billionaires who are talking about the need for climate change actions, including eating bugs, stopping the farmers from farming, and other things like that, until we see them dial back their own consumption so that they lead by example, this is all just nonsense. And I invite you to ignore it and ignore it completely. But at any rate, that's where we're at. Remember, all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed or ignored. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it's accepted as being self-evident. I really hope we don't get to the self-evident stage of eating bugs. Hopefully we can get it through this violent opposition stage, because to me, it's not truth that we have to accept this inevitability of moving towards this pathway of going from beef to crickets to cannibalism. I don't buy it. You shouldn't buy it either. This is nonsense. I don't think this has anything to do with the stated reasons. In fact, I think this is what I'm going to be talking about next. The stuff I can only say privately. I'm going to be saying it for my subscribers. This is enemy action. We have to talk about this very seriously. The community needs a little privacy to talk about this. So that's what we're going to do. Over at Peak Prosperity, behind our paywall, we will continue this conversation. Thank you very much for listening. Hope to see you over there. Otherwise, I'll see you back on this channel next time.